a different time, but in a land our ancestors knew well, there was a king named Moth, son of Mathonwe, and he ruled rightly and well. But he had a very odd quality about him, and it was this, that in times of peace he had no right to rule unless his feet rested upon the lap of a maiden. And there might be a mystery there. And as it happens, he was without such a maiden, and there is a story there, but I'm not here to tell you that tale. But I'm here to tell you this one. So, Moth was in this quandary. He was attempting to rule but had no right, for he was without such a footholder. But his nephew, Gwydion, son of Don, was perhaps best known as a, cunning bastard. And he smiled the smile as only one such as he can smile, and he said, "My lord, I believe my sister, Arianrod, daughter of Don, would fit your needs quite perfectly. You should have her summoned immediately." Now, there are many things I could tell you about Arianrod, but you should know this. Never was she the sort of woman who enjoyed being summoned by anyone at any time for any reason. But Moth, following the advice of his nephew, did just that and sent for her. And Arianrod, a queen in her own right, appeared before Moth, son of Mathonwe, as summoned, glaring all the time at Gwydion, her brother, suspecting he must have had something to do with her summons. Now, I will tell you this about Arianrod. She was not a youngish girl, but she was not an old woman. She had a worldly sense about her, and Moth sensed this, and perhaps suspecting that she was not a maiden, looked at her and said, "Well, are you a maiden?" And it was at this point that Arianrod knew what she was here for, and she smiled the smile that is actually more of a gritting of the teeth as she glared at Gwydion ap Don, her lovely brother. And she looked at the king then and said, "I do not know but that I am not." And then Moth, smiling the smile of one who had no idea what he had just heard, but pretending to know because he was king, thought about it and said, "My dear, I have a magic rod, and if you would be so kind as to step over the rod, we shall know the truth of the matter." And once again, Arianrod, daughter of Don, queen in her own right, did the gritty teeth smile at Gwydion, her loving brother. Then, smiling at Moth, she stepped over this magic rod of his. And as she did, she gave birth to a child, who immediately ran into the sea, and he was named Dylan of the Wave, for he swam as well as any seal or dolphin. And then as she fled the room in apparent embarrassment, she dropped a little something else about her that no one noticed. No one but Gwydion, son of Don, who very quietly picked it up and stuck it in his pocket and left the royal chamber. Walking quickly through the halls, he made his way to his own room, and there at the foot of his bed was a chest. And I suspect this chest was entirely unlike any chest that you might have or that I might have. For Gwydion ap Don, as well as a poet, as well as a warrior, he was also a wizard. And this was the sort of chest a wizard might have. And he opened the chest, and from his pocket he withdrew the secret little something that Arianrod had dropped, and he placed it into the chest, and he sealed it. And there it rested for 9 long months. And at the end of this time, he heard a thump, a bump, a muffled voice coming from the chest that had been closed for 9 months. He flung open the lid, and inside was a beautiful child, not a baby, but a boy. And as Gwydion ap Don looked at his face, he felt the pangs of love that only a father really feels for his own child. And then with joy, he scooped up this beautiful boy and went to Ariandrod to show her what she had birthed, what in fact he actually had also helped birth. And she looked at this child and said, "How dare you bring before me this symbol of my embarrassment? I lay this Gwaharthiad upon him." You know what a Gwaharthiad is, don't you? It's a Welsh version of a magical prohibition. Anyway, back to what she was saying. "I lay this Gwaharthiad upon him, that he shall have no name, except one that I give him. And I assure you, I will not give that easily." Well, Gwydion ap Don took this child away from her and held him close and thought about the future and possibilities of what was to come.